Good morning. Welcome to my travel window. Today's episode will start a new series called Tales from the Road. It's taken from a series of correspondence that I had with a good friend that started during the pandemic when neither of us were able to travel and we weren't able to meet together. So what we would do is share coffee from afar and words that described our adventures together in travel. ¿Dónde estamos? AKA Lost in Madrid. It was night, although our bodies were not quite willing to admit that fact. We had passed through 9 time zones since our departure from Spokane International, where we had been delayed by the mandatory de-icing necessitated by the frigid temperatures that were the first signs of encroaching winter weather, and now found ourselves staring out the window of a very different, albeit warmer, world. The confusion arose from the fact that our brains were convinced it was still the previous night, since we had yet to sleep any measurable time, making it seem like one endless day. But our stomachs, having been fed regularly in transit, had accurately tracked the hours and were now preparing for what would soon be lunchtime in Spokane. Our eyes, however, had observed the sunset, sunrise, and sunset again, and were fully on board with the fact that we were now preparing for a second night of our nascent journey. While these various body parts were in open debate, attempting to reconcile their perceptive differences with one another, the driver of the conveyance with which we now found ourselves was experiencing a cognitive dissonance of his own. The mission was simple enough. Having picked up a weary-looking and largely unintelligible couple from his local Madrid airport, the taxi driver had been able to at least solicit an address. That was enough. Recognizing it as located in the heart of the old city, he proceeded to enter the details into his phone GPS, and the trio headed off. During the early portion of the trip, communications were attempted between the driver and his transportees, but the language barrier between them was wider than either party could navigate, and the ride had resolved into an awkward silence. Looking back on the incident, I now realize how wide the chasm is between the modern portions of Madrid and its 4-century-old heart. The route from the airport had been along sleek, modern roadways, and upon reaching the edge of town, we had discovered a whole new world of automotive engineering. Ringing the city is an underground circular roadway, some 20 miles in length. It has the slightly claustrophobic feel of being in a subway tunnel, but we were rocketing along at 45 miles an hour in a car, with lighting just sufficient to let you know there were intersections coming. This, of course, added to the general sense of bodily confusion. Already having no agreed-upon sense of time, we had equal confusion of space. Adrenaline has many virtues. One of these is the ability to shut down debate and get all parties to focus on the here and now. By the time we emerged from the tunnel and witnessed for the first time the narrow, confused streets of the Habsburg-era city, the call had gone out for all body parts to quit debating and focus on the task at hand. 10 minutes later, after our third circuit of the same Madrid terrain without success, all internal debates regarding time and space had ceased. The field marshal had mobilized his body forces, and all hands were on deck, focused on the one task remaining, getting out of this vehicle and into our appointed Airbnb lodgings. The final leg of this journey had started hopefully enough. Watching the GPS, we could see where we were and our ultimate destination. We began to relax a bit. We came to a street. Well, in America we would call it a back alley, but the GPS called it a roadway. And the GPS indicated we should turn there. Unfortunately, the path was blocked. A motorway during some parts of the day, this path was apparently a pedestrian walkway at night. The driver gestured toward the GPS, muttering a few sentences to us in what he seemed to expect us to understand. My 2 years of high school Spanish yielded not a single word of comprehension, but the situation seemed clear enough. He was going to have to go the long way around, and he proceeded to attempt to do so. It was when we recognized the same intersection for the third consecutive time that we realized the driver could not get us to our desired location. With each iteration came a fresh set of explanation from the driver. Or was it the same set? Who could know? To be fair, he had tried multiple options. At one point, he even turned down a path that caused the adrenaline to kick up yet another notch. The road was so narrow that the driver had to reach out and pull in his mirrors on each side in order to pass. Even then, we inched forward, barely moving. With the driver, our eyes flashed from one mirror to the other. I think he has an inch on this side, maybe two over there. Oh, nope, not anymore. I waited for the scraping sound, but he emerged unscathed. Arriving back into the small plaza where we began the detour, we experienced another first. The driver parked the taxi. Leaving it running, he motioned once again unintelligibly and left us. We watched in obvious concern as he struck up a conversation with nearby locals. He returned and departed anew. We quickly ticked off our list of available resources, finally narrowing to one available option, our Airbnb hostess. While we had been fruitlessly exploring the back streets of old Madrid, she was waiting for us as we had previously arranged. We had cell phones, but no idea how to make an international call. But after several failed attempts, we were finally able to connect with her. When our taxi driver reappeared after his second unfruitful search for information, we handed him the phone. 5 minutes later, the three most relieved people in Madrid arrived at the location that would house us for our brief stay in Spain's capital. The following morning, we would explore the area around us. To our shock, we were less than 50 yards from one of the most famous landmarks of old Madrid, Mercado San Miguel, which is where our hostess had directed the driver and to which he probably drives daily. So close and yet so far. Roaming the delightful interior of the Mercado with the greatest concentration of fresh food on display that we had ever seen, we marveled. Day one, we already knew it would be an adventure. Surely the rest of the trip cannot top that first day. Oh yes, it can. Until next time, safe travels.